Dr. Albright had just asked me to commit to doing the dishes every single night. Not sometimes. Not when I felt like it. Every single night. And I honestly felt like I was going to throw up right there in her tastefully decorated office, which usually smelled faintly of lavender and stale coffee. Amelia, my wife, was sitting beside me, rigid, her eyes fixed on Dr. Albright, but I could feel the heat of her expectation, her hope, burning a hole through me. She probably thought this was it, the breakthrough, the moment I finally got it. But all I felt was this incredible, overwhelming pressure, like the air itself was getting denser, pushing down on my chest. We've been doing these therapy sessions for 3 months now, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Always the same little room, the same beige sofa, the same knowing, patient look from Dr. Albright. Amelia, she's all in. Notebooks, bullet points, talking about active listening and emotional labor. Me? I show up. I try. I really do. But half the time I'm just listening to the hum of the old fluorescent lights in the hallway, wondering if I left the garage door open. Tonight was different. Tonight, the hum was a roar. We're both 32. Married for 6 years next month. Together since our senior year of college. So it's been a decade of us. We bought our first house, a fixer-upper in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Raleigh, about 2 years ago. No kids yet. That's a whole other silent argument we've been having for the last couple of years. Mostly through glances and avoidance. But that's not really what this is about. Or maybe it is. Everything feels connected now, twisted up in this impossible knot. The thing is, it's never just about the dishes. It's about everything. It's about the laundry, the overflowing recycling bin, the bills on the counter that I always say I'll get to. It's about feeling like I'm constantly disappointing her, constantly falling short, even when I think I'm doing my best. And she looks at me, like she did just then, with a flicker of something I couldn't quite name. Exasperation, resignation. And it just crushes me, makes me want to lash out or just curl up and disappear. I could feel my jaw clench. My throat was suddenly dry, like I'd swallowed sand. I wanted to explain, to articulate that this simple request felt like the weight of the world, that it wasn't about a few plates, but about the whole damn house, the whole damn life we'd built. That felt like it was crumbling. But I couldn't. The words just stuck, thick and heavy behind my teeth. My gaze drifted to the framed print on Dr. Albright's wall, some abstract thing with muted blues and grays, and I just stared at it, willing myself to breathe. This was it, wasn't it? This was the moment everything either broke or what? I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. All I could feel was this desperate, suffocating need to just get out. It's funny, thinking about dishes and Dr. Albright's office, because for years I barely even registered them, or anything else, really, beyond my own immediate bubble. Amelia and I, we were just us, inseparable. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when that started to shift, when the effortless us became something tangled and demanding, something that needed a therapist to mediate a chore rota. We met at NC State back in 2011. I was a junior engineering major, and she was a sophomore. English literature. I saw her first in the Tally Student Union. She was sitting at one of those big communal tables, buried in a textbook, wearing this old, faded Carolina Hurricanes hoodie. I was with my buddy Chris heading to grab a pizza, and I just stopped. She had this intensity about her, even just reading, like she was absorbing every single word. Chris actually had to nudge me to move. I thought she was out of my league, honestly. But then, a few weeks later, we ended up in the same elective. Introduction to Philosophy. She actually raised her hand and challenged the professor on something about Kant. And I was just completely captivated. I mean, who does that? I certainly wouldn't have. I worked up the nerve to talk to her after class one day right outside Withers Hall. We talked about the professor's weird tie and then somehow about our majors, our hometowns. She was from Greensboro. I was from Asheville. We just clicked. It was easy. We spent pretty much every evening after that, either in the library or at the Cup of Joe coffee shop on Hillsborough Street, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Our first official date was dinner at Niamond, that Mediterranean place, on October 12th, 2011. I remember because she teased me for being so formal. We dated all through college, moved in together the summer after I graduated, that small 2-bedroom apartment near Cameron Village, right off Oberlin Road. It felt huge at the time, this big step into adulthood. Looking back, that's probably where it all began, the slow, imperceptible drift. I'd always been not messy, just not particularly aware of messes. Amelia, on the other hand, she liked things neat. Not obsessively, but she preferred order. I'd leave my clothes on the floor, and she'd pick them up. I'd finish breakfast and leave the bowl in the sink, saying I'd get to it later, and she'd wash it. It was never a fight, not really. It was just her doing it, and me, I'd thank her, maybe feel a tiny pang of guilt, and then forget about it. It became a pattern. She'd quietly take on these little tasks, and I'd quietly let her. I figured she's just better at it, more organized. She likes things done a certain way, and I don't really care, so it works, right? That was my logic, my flawed, stupid logic. There were times, maybe once a month at most, when she'd bring it up. Hey, David, could you maybe try to keep your socks in the hamper? Or, the counter's kind of sticky from the coffee. Do you mind wiping it down? Her tone was always gentle, almost hesitant, like she was afraid of bothering me. And I'd always say, oh yeah, sorry, totally forgot Akuai, and I'd make an effort for a day or two. But then the old habits would creep back in. I'd convince myself that she didn't really mind, that she knew I was busy with work or just distracted. It was never a big enough deal to actually sit down and discuss, not in a serious way. Just these little, almost imperceptible nudges that I expertly ignored or misinterpreted as her just being naturally more inclined to housework. I thought it was just our dynamic, something that made us unique. Her quiet efficiency balancing my more relaxed approach. We got engaged 4 years later, just after my 28th birthday, at the Blue Ridge Parkway overlook we always went to when we visited my parents in Asheville. Married 6 months after that. A small ceremony at a vineyard just north of town. It was the happiest day. All those little things, the unwashed dishes, the laundry piles, they felt so insignificant then. Just minor quirks in the grand scheme of our love. Then we bought the house, a 3-bedroom ranch. Not huge, but enough with a decent yard. And suddenly those little quirks weren't so little anymore. They had room to grow, to fester, to become the silent, simmering resentment that now felt like it was suffocating us both. In Dr. Albright's quiet room. That house, our house, it amplified everything. When we lived in that small apartment, a mess was contained. In a house, it felt like it spread, taking over. The first few months were a blur of painting, unpacking, and trying to learn how to fix a leaky faucet from YouTube. Amelia was thrilled, buzzing with ideas for decor, planning out the garden. I was just happy to have a garage for my tools and a spare room for my old console games. The division of labor, unspoken before, became glaringly obvious. She handled the decor, the social calendar, the grocery lists. I handled the yard, the occasional repair, and my job as a software engineer, which honestly felt like it consumed most of my waking hours. The first major blow-up happened maybe 6 months after we moved in. It was a Saturday morning, beautiful fall day in late October. We'd had some friends over for a game night the night before, Ben and Chloe from Amelia's work, and Justin, my old roommate. The living room was still littered with chip bags, empty beer bottles, and the board game pieces. I was planning to clean it up eventually. I just wanted to finish my coffee and maybe watch some college football first. Amelia walked in from the kitchen, where she'd already emptied the dishwasher and wiped down the counters. Her voice was quiet, almost too quiet. David, could you please just deal with this? The living room looks like a frat house exploded. I remember feeling defensive immediately. I was going to, Amelia. I just woke up. Give me a minute. A minute? It's been here since midnight. I cleaned the kitchen. I got the mail. I even took out the recycling. Can you just see it and do it sometimes? Her voice was rising now, a little edge creeping in. Yeah, I see it. And I said I'd do it. What's the big deal? It's Saturday. We can relax. Relax? This isn't relaxing for me, David. It's another thing on my mental to-do list that I have to either nag you about or just do myself. And honestly, I'm tired of it. She threw her hands up, a gesture I'd seen 100 times since we moved in. It always made my stomach clench. We ended up spending the rest of the day in a tense silence, the living room slowly getting cleaned by me, begrudgingly, while she retreated to the spare bedroom to organize her books. That night, she barely spoke to me. I thought, this is just a rough patch. We'll get past it. I told myself she was just stressed with the house, with her new team at work. But a little seed of doubt was planted. Fast forward another year, and things had gotten worse. Not explosively, but it was a constant, low-level hum of friction. The disagreements became more frequent, always about the same stuff. Chores, feeling unheard, me forgetting things. One evening, I was out with Justin and a few other guys from work, watching a Hornets game. I'd promised Amelia I'd be home by 10 p.m. because she had an early meeting. I looked at my watch at 9:55, realized it was too late to make it back, and figured I'd just text her. Hey, gonna be a little late. Game's still on. Maybe 11-ish? I typed quickly, not really thinking. Her response came back almost immediately. Seriously, David? You just completely disregard our plans? I needed to get some sleep. This isn't fair. I rolled my eyes. It's just an hour, not a big deal. I texted back, relax, it's fine. I'll be quiet when I get in. No response after that. When I got home, the lights were off. She was already asleep, turned away from me. The next morning, she was frosty. It felt like I was walking on eggshells for days. I talked to Justin about it casually. Man, Amelia's been on my case lately. Just little things like being late or leaving my coffee cup out. It's like she's trying to pick a fight sometimes. Justin, who'd been married for 8 years, just gave me a look. Dude, yeah, you gotta listen to her. My wife, Ashley, she used to do the same thing. Started out small. Now, if I leave a sock on the floor, she gives me the look. Your wife isn't picking a fight. She's probably at her wit's end. Trust me, I waved him off. Nah, you don't get it. Amelia's just different, more particular. We'll figure it out. I convinced myself he didn't understand our unique dynamic, that my wife was just more high-strung than his. Blind spot, I guess. I completely missed the point that her frustration was a valid response to my inaction, not some inherent personality trait of hers. The most humiliating moment, or at least it felt that way at the time, happened at a dinner party. My parents, Robert and Susan, were in town staying with us, along with Amelia's parents, Diane and Paul. We were all sitting around the dining table after a really good meal Amelia had cooked, talking and laughing. The table was covered with plates, bowls, serving dishes. I got up to grab another beer from the fridge. As I walked back, Amelia's dad, Paul, started clearing his plate. Oh, let me get that, Paul, Amelia said, reaching for his plate. Nonsense, sweetheart, he replied, stacking it. David, why don't you help Amelia clear the table? Your mom and I can get the dishes into the sink. He said it so cheerfully, so matter-of-factly. My face felt hot. My own dad, Robert, just nodded. Good idea, son. Team effort. Amelia, bless her, smiled and said, Thanks, Dad. I mean, that would be great. She didn't look at me, but I felt her parents' eyes. My parents' eyes. It felt like everyone in the room suddenly saw me for what I was. A grown man who couldn't even clear his own dinner plate without being prompted. I started clearing, but I was stiff, self-conscious. The conversation died down a bit. I could feel Amelia's unspoken judgment, like a heavy blanket. Later, when everyone had gone to bed, she came into the living room where I was still picking at some leftover dessert. "That was awkward, David. You saw Paul getting up. Why didn't you just help?" she asked, her voice tired. "I was going to!" Everyone just jumped in. "And what was with your dad? Making a show of it like that?" I snapped, still feeling defensive. "He wasn't making a show. He was being helpful, like a normal husband would be. And you were just sitting there waiting for someone else to do it." Her voice was quiet, but it was edged with a pain that felt new, deeper. "Do you know how it makes me feel, David, when my own father has to tell you to help out in our house? Like I'm with a child, not a partner." That line hit me hard. Like I'm with a child. It echoed in my head for days. I tried to do better after that, I really did. For a week, maybe 2, I'd take out the trash without being asked, unload the dishwasher. But then inevitably, something would slip. A busy week at work, a late night, and I'd revert. And the silence would creep back in, those small, almost imperceptible signs of Amelia pulling away. A little less touch, a little less eye contact, a little less laughter. And I'd tell myself, it's fine. We're just busy. This is just how married life is sometimes. I was so good at rationalizing, so good at avoiding the raw truth of what was happening. It was a slow bleed, not a sudden gash. And I was too preoccupied with my own comfort to see the blood loss until it was almost too late. The moment of truth wasn't a dramatic discovery of an affair or some hidden financial secret. It was far more mundane and, in a way, far more devastating. It happened 2 weeks before Doctor. Albright asked me to do the dishes every night. A Tuesday, late morning actually. I was working from home that day, a rare treat, trying to debug a particularly tricky piece of code. Amelia usually worked from the office, but she'd called in sick with a bad migraine. She was in bed, lights out, trying to sleep it off. I was in my office, which used to be the spare bedroom. Around 11 a.m., I needed a break and more coffee. I walked into the kitchen, the usual clutter of our morning still sitting on the counter, my empty cereal bowl, her tea mug, some fruit peels. The dishwasher was half unloaded. I'd started it after breakfast, then gotten sidetracked by a work email. I grabbed my mug, rinsed it, and went to get the coffee. That's when I noticed her phone, sitting on the charging pad, screen up. I didn't mean to look, not really, but a notification popped up from a local real estate agent. Not a new listing, but a message, a text, and the name caught my eye. Lauren, buyer's agent. My stomach dropped. Amelia hadn't mentioned talking to a real estate agent, ever. We'd bought this house 2 years ago. We were still paying it off. Why would she be looking at houses? I hesitated for only a second. Curiosity, or maybe a gut feeling, won out. I picked up her phone. It was unlocked. My heart was pounding, a heavy thudding in my ears. I scrolled up a little. The messages were short, direct, not flirty, not secretive in that way, just pragmatic. "Hi, Amelia. Just following up on your inquiry about 1417 Willow Creek. It's still available, and I can set up a showing for you anytime next week. Let me know what works." Then Amelia's reply. "Thanks, Lauren. I'm thinking about a place for just me. Something smaller, probably a condo or a townhome. Not looking to buy with David. Just me, not with David." The words hit me like a physical blow. The air felt thin, sharp. My hand started to tremble. The phone suddenly heavy. I had to sit down, the kitchen stool scraping loudly against the tile floor. My mind was reeling, trying to process, to make sense of something that made absolutely no sense. Just me. Is she planning to leave? Moving out? No. No way. This had to be a mistake. A joke. But the messages were too clear, too specific. I scrolled further, my fingers shaking, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I found an email chain again. with Lauren, the same agent. It included a link to a few small 2-bedroom condos. One of them had a picture of a cute little balcony, a perfect spot for Amelia's potted herbs. It was all so real, so meticulously planned. She hadn't said a word. Not a single word. A sudden wave of nausea washed over me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, my vision blurring at the edges. I had to force myself to stay calm, to think, but my thoughts were a chaotic mess of denial, anger, and a searing, awful understanding. This wasn't about the dishes. This wasn't about being late from the bar. This was about everything, about our entire life. And she was already halfway out the door. She was preparing for a life without me. I heard a small cough from the bedroom. Amelia. My heart hammered even harder. I quickly, clumsily put her phone back on the charger, trying to make it look untouched. My hands were still shaking. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to compose myself. I couldn't confront her like this, not right now, not with her migraine, not without my own head screwed on straight. But I couldn't just pretend I hadn't seen it either. I walked to the bedroom door, stood there for a moment, the quiet hum of the house suddenly deafening. The curtains were drawn, making the room dim. Amelia was a lump under the duvet. Facing away from me, I cleared my throat. "Hey," I said, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. She stirred, a soft groan. You okay?" "Yeah, just, wondering if you needed anything. Water? Something to eat?" I forced the words out, each one feeling like a lie. "No, I'm good. Just trying to sleep this off." She sounded groggy, her voice thick. I stood there for another few seconds, paralyzed. How could she lie there, sick, and be planning this? How could she have kept this from me? The betrayal felt like a sharp pain, even though intellectually I knew I'd driven her to this. Hadn't I? The realization was a bitter pill. I backed out of the room, my mind racing. I went back to my office, but there was no way I could work. My hands were still shaking, my stomach churning. I stared at the lines of code on my screen, meaningless symbols. I thought about the first time I saw her in the student union, the way she challenged the philosophy professor, her Carolina Hurricanes hoodie. All those memories, suddenly tainted, viewed through the lens of this new, terrifying reality. I spent the next hour just pacing from my office to the kitchen, avoiding the bedroom door, replaying the messages in my head. Not looking to buy with David. It was a death sentence for our relationship, delivered by a real estate agent's email. I knew then that we were in deeper trouble than just a few unwashed dishes. This was a crisis, and I had no idea how to fix it. My immediate action was to not act at all, to just sit there in the wreckage of my own making, trying to breathe. That discovery, seeing those texts, it fundamentally shifted everything. The dishes, the laundry, my forgetfulness, they stopped being minor annoyances and became symptoms of a much deeper, much more destructive issue. Amelia planning to move out alone meant she had completely given up on us. The thought paralyzed me for a good 24 hours. I couldn't even bring myself to tell her what I'd seen. I was too scared of making it real, of shattering the fragile peace we still maintained. But the cat was already out of the bag, at least for me. The next morning, a Wednesday, I finally broke down and told her in Dr. Albright's office during what was supposed to be a session on communication styles. I just blurted it out. "I saw the messages, Amelia, with the real estate agent. Are you really looking for a place?" Her face, usually so composed in those sessions, crumbled. Dr. Albright just sat there, quiet, letting the bomb explode. Amelia didn't deny it. She just looked at me, her eyes brimming. "Yes, David. I've been looking for a few weeks now. I couldn't bring myself to tell you. I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't keep living like this." Her voice was barely a whisper. That's when the chaos really began. The sessions with Dr. Albright became less about active listening and more about crisis management. We went from vaguely addressing my domestic shortcomings to talking about separation, about logistics. Our house, the one we'd put so much work into, became a battleground of silent negotiations. Finances were suddenly a huge, tangled mess. We had a joint account, a mortgage, car payments. Splitting everything felt impossible. We didn't have kids, which I guess was a small mercy, but even without that, the practicalities were overwhelming. Work suffered. I was distracted, constantly replaying conversations, my mind racing with hypothetical scenarios. My boss, Mr. Henderson, actually pulled me aside asking if everything was okay. I just mumbled something about personal stuff. Amelia was the same. She started staying late at work or going out with her friend, Chloe, more often. The house felt empty, cold, even when we were both in it. Our friends, Ben and Chloe, they knew something was up. Chloe was Amelia's closest confidant, so she definitely knew the extent of things. Ben, he tried to be supportive to me. Look, man, you got to fight for her if you want this. But you really got to change. Not just for a week, but for good, Justin, on the other hand, was more blunt. Dude, I told you. You let it get to this. You didn't listen. Now you got to deal with it. My parents were heartbroken when I finally told them. My mom, Susan, cried. My dad, Robert, just shook his head, looking disappointed. It was crushing. Amelia hadn't told her parents the full extent yet, just that things were tense. I started trying, really trying. I actually did the dishes every night for a week straight. I cleaned the bathroom. I took out the trash. I tried to initiate conversations. What can I do to help, Amelia? I'd ask, feeling desperate. But it was too late. The well was poisoned. My efforts felt like too little, too late. And she saw them as reactive, not genuine. You only do it when you think I'm leaving, David. It's not real. It's not from the heart. And that stung because, on some level, she was right. I was motivated by fear, not by an inherent desire to be a better, more considerate partner. Then came the unexpected discovery. One evening, I was going through some old files on my laptop, looking for an invoice for a repair. I stumbled upon a folder I didn't recognize, labeled House Budget, Amelia. Inside, there were meticulous spreadsheets, not just budget items, but chore lists, calendars, and a section labeled David's Contributions. It was empty for weeks at a time, then a single check mark, then empty again. There were notes, too, little comments she'd made to herself. Ask David about the lawn again. No response. Cleaning schedule updated. David hasn't looked at it. This wasn't just a recent thing. This was years of her documenting my neglect, her frustration. It was a silent testament to how long she'd been carrying the burden, trying to manage our life, trying to hold us together, while I was blissfully unaware or willfully ignorant. Seeing it all laid out, cold and objective, was another gut punch. It wasn't just my perception anymore. It was documented, undeniable proof of my failures. The chaos wasn't just around me. It was also the chaos of understanding, finally, how much I had truly failed. So, here we are. It's been 3 months since that dreadful therapy session. 4 months since I saw those texts. Amelia and I are still in the same house, but it feels more like an extremely polite coexistence than a marriage. We're in separate bedrooms. We're still seeing Dr. Albright, but the focus has shifted entirely. It's less about reconciliation and more about navigating an amicable separation. We're discussing selling the house, probably in the spring. It still feels surreal to even type that. I'm doing the dishes every night now, and not just the dishes. I'm doing my own laundry. I'm wiping down the counters. I'm actually seeing the messes, the things that need to be done, instead of just walking past them. It's automatic now, a habit I'm trying to cultivate, not just for Amelia, but for myself. It's hard, though, because I know it's too late for us. The trust is gone, the resentment too deep. Even if I could miraculously become the perfectly attentive, considerate partner she always wanted, the damage is already done. She told me last week very gently that she just doesn't feel it anymore. She loves me, she said, but not in that way. Not in the way a wife loves her husband. What I've learned the hard way is that love isn't just a feeling. It's an active daily choice to show up, to be present, to contribute equally. And it's about listening, truly listening, when someone tells you they're hurting, instead of dismissing it or rationalizing it away. My blind spots? They were huge. I thought being a good guy was enough. I thought my job, my income, my generally pleasant demeanor would carry the weight of our shared life. I was wrong. Horribly wrong. This whole mess, it's changed how I look at my future relationships, if there are any. I know I need to address these deeply ingrained habits, this casual neglect, before I ever try to build a life with someone else. I can't be that person anymore. It's a painful lesson, one that cost me everything. I'm grateful for the insights, even if they came at such a high price, and I'm grateful to this anonymous corner of the internet for letting me just put this all out there. It helps to write it, to see it, to own it. I guess the big question now is, what does a life truly alone look like for me? Can I actually learn to be the kind of partner I should have been for myself? And can Amelia ever forgive me? Not just for what I didn't do, but for who I was? I don't know the answers, not yet. I just know that the future feels vast and empty and terrifying. And for the first time in my life, I have to figure out how to clean up my own mess. Completely alone.